Perfect. And we have one coming in, a couple coming in. So how many of you have had anything to do with putting a course online at all? Okay. And how many of you, this is a completely new concept and this is your first starting learning point for everything? Okay, because we are going to build from the ground up, so if it's some stuff that those of you who are already doing this, that's great. And what we're going to do when I do my sessions, I try to build it as a discussion. So as we go, if you have things that you would like to, add into the conversation, if you have examples of something you've done, for those of you who have put things online, feel free to share with us so we can all share in those experiences. That's great. For those of you that just joined, we're doing names and what departments you're with.
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Wang, and I'm from Higher Education Administration.
Perfect. And?
Yeah, I'm Sharon Hilton. I'm from chemistry.
Wonderful.
Excellent. I'm Nathan Hensley, and I'm a postdoc with the Honors College.
Wonderful. All right, so, we have a few more. We'll wait with.
Go ahead. You just keep
coming in.
These people will worry about.
We'll do. Yep. What I'm going to have you do is go ahead and take a note card and go ahead and pass them around. Perfect. What we're doing is there's going to be a note card that's coming around. And on these note cards, there's going to be on the front side and on the back side, you're going to be putting on there two different thoughts. On one side, I want you to go ahead and put down what do you think would be the easiest course or activity within your course to go ahead and move online. Does that make sense? Okay. And on the other side of that note card, I want you to put what do you think is the most difficult type of course or activity within your course that would be to correlate putting online. And if we missed anybody on the sign-in sheet, just make sure you sign in at the end.
Are there two going on? Because I signed one.
There are
There is.
There are
Okay, I was like,
As long as you sign on.
all right.
And we do have snacks, so make sure you partake in snacks at some point as well. So. Okay. If you're still writing. Well, welcome to our Big EO Center Distance Learning space. How many of you have been in here for a session? Great. Well, welcome. We're pretty excited to have this wonderful new space. So, all right. Is everybody basically ready? Okay. What we're going to have you do is we're going to spend time passing to your right, and we're just going to keep passing until I say stop.
Pass your index card off to you right now. I'll facilitate over here. Just pass. So. Coming. Okay, here we go. Sure.
You just read. Just keep going.
Just keep passing.
Just keep passing. Keep passing.
It's like musical index card chairs.
Okay, and we'll stop. So here's where you're going to. Yep, we're stopping right here.
Is there any slack in the system?
Yeah.
There's some slack in the system.
Over here.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Just one more.
Just one more.
Somebody
Come
put a
on,
blank one.
here, there's a blank one. That was just the Joker.
Oh, nice. Placebo.
Good to have one of those.
It is. Yeah.
Good to have. So,
Who's missing?
Yeah, we'll share.
Someone share. Okay.
perfect. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. So, who would like to speak up first? I guess hopefully we'll know which is which. But on one side of your card, read, hopefully, you're going to decipher this, the easiest course or activity within a course to put online. Sure?
This person, and whoever got mine, I put them both in.
Well, hey, if they're in order, we'll know.
This says basic fundamentals on one side and complex interactions on the other. So I would say that basic fundamentals would be the easiest to move online, and then the most difficult would be complex interactions.
Perfect. Yeah, I would have to agree that that's probably. Okay, who else would like to share?
I think it's the good one. Easy would be lectures and collaborations. The difficult would be lab work and group discussions.
Perfect.
Mm.
Okay.
I got something here. The easiest one is assignments, and the hardest one is the question answer.
Is the
Answering the question.
asking the questions? Okay.
Answering the question.
Answering questions. Answering questions for them. Got it.
So easy, I assume, is notes and quizzes. Difficult would be exams.
Perfect. We can address some of those. Very well. So, anybody else have something?
Yeah, I have class discussion as an easy, and on the back it's a lab type class. So kind of a theme that's already been established.
Right, right. It's a very good concern, and we will certainly address some of those as we go along so that we can talk about, as a group, if anybody has done some of those and what some of the options might be. So, all right, before we roll on, is there anybody else who wants to share? Okay. Okay, so we talked about some of these things. What do you think are important? Discussions, all these different areas, but we're going to talk a little bit about how you start to build an actual course online and then incorporate some of these pieces as you go. So, what are the important parts? There's an Addy. If anyone's heard about the Addy program, and it's based basically just exactly off this. I know it's a little fuzzy, so we'll say what they are, but it's analyze, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. What you want to consider this is it's much like when you first start teaching and you're building a curriculum for that specific course, you're reevaluating that process when you go to take that course and move it online. So we're going to roll through that entire process as you get ready to go. Okay, so part of analyze. What do your students need to learn? Does anyone have anything they'd like to throw out there? What do your students need to learn? Okay. Basic content. They need to learn maybe some interactions.
Critical thinking, maybe.
Perfect, perfect. So how do we get that to be incorporated into an online program? The other thing you want to look is who are your learners? What are their characteristics? What year are they in school? Are they freshmen? Are they graduates? Are they upperclassmen? This will all make a difference in how you kind of build your class. Incoming freshmen, they're going to be a little more timid, so you're going to have to build in some of the pieces that others might go around and look for a little more easily in upperclassmen. What is their exposure? Upperclassmen at some places might have a little more familiarity with doing some classes online, whereas a freshman is not going to have that familiarity. Or if you have a graduate level, if they've been out a while, some of them haven't had any classes online, so they're a little more scared of what that actually entails. And again, what level, technology-wise? You know, get a feel for who they are. What are they comfortable with? What is it that they're used to being able to do? And why? Why are they taking a class online? Are they stay-at-home moms going back to school? Are they students that couldn't get a class in, and so they're trying to get it in online? And so what are the different motivations? Because that'll make a difference in the level that you'll get from your students. Okay, so then we,
Now, are you going to put this somewhere where you can go back and get your slides?
certainly, we can do that.
It'll cost you money though.
Yeah, or maybe some extra work, I don't know. So, okay, so what materials do you need to incorporate when you're moving from a face-to-face to online class? Does anyone have any ideas of what you would want to incorporate? So in a face-to-face class, you might have them take notes, right? They take lecture notes. What might be a way that you could get those so that your students would have those same type of notes?
Have a structured note-taking kind of attachment where they could, you know, maybe by different topics or even vocabulary.
Perfect. Very good idea. And there's some technologies that we'll discuss that can help you make that work. So that's a very good point. So yes, how will you present the material? And you've kind of got into that. How do you break it down? What do you do? so that they can follow along. And again, how do you present the material also comes back to what level are they. If they're freshmen, they're going to kind of be used to having things really handed to them. Everything needs to be kind of spelled out. If they're upperclassmen, they're kind of used to doing some of those critical thinking a little bit more on their own. So you really need to know how much work goes into the level of that course. And that's really important. So how you present that material is, again, looking at your target audience of students and getting a feel for that. So. And how will your students interact with the material? Again, we discussed a little bit about how do you do labs. We just had the discussions. What do you do for discussions? So you really want to be able to think about what pieces are important in your face-to-face class. So if you have a face-to-face class and you discuss on a regular basis, what might be a way in an online class that you can do the same type of thing? Does anyone have any ideas?
Use the discussion mode on Canvas. Click on that.
Perfect. So for those, is everyone familiar with what that might mean to use a discussion mode? Okay, so you have a discussion board in which you can post a topic. And you can prompt them as little or as much as you want to. So you can say, please discuss biochemistry idea 336. And then you have areas where the students then respond. And there, you can have them into groups. How many of you have really large classes? And large classes are sizes?
170.
170. That's definitely a large class.
100.
100? Those are big. 210. That's a very large class. So do you do any discussion modes? No, probably impossible.
In class, I have to talk back with me and stuff like that, but not
Right.
on campus.
Right. So yeah, and there are ways, like I said, that would be a difficult piece to incorporate. It can be done. A lot of times you can break them down into smaller groups so that it's easier to maintain.
One of the problems with my discipline, though, is discussion also requires a lot of other things besides just words. You have pictures, you have other drawings that they're creating, you have equations. Are we talking anything about tools for, multimodal interactions?
And you can. There is an area in the discussion board inside Canvas that they can actually upload those files, or are supposed to be able to upload those files.
What if you want them to create them?
You're right. That does get into a slightly technologically advanced area. And what would do they hand draw them if they're in class? At that point, one of the things you would maybe have to do if you were going to switch to the online version, do you teach that in an online now and you just don't get to incorporate that?
I've tried online.
Didn't work out because of that. One of the things you can try to start to implement are the technology requirements for them to be able to take that class. So much as if you come into a program and, okay, this program requires a laptop, you can say, okay, if you're in an online class, I now need all these students to be able to have tablet capabilities so that they can write and it can be recorded. Or I need them to all have a scanner, which then scans in their drawing and then they can upload it into the assignments that way for me. It gets to be a little bit difficult to make sure that those stipulations are in place, but I have seen it done. Or it's up front right away. This was in the requirements. You may have missed it. First day, if you have taken this class and you don't have these requirements, either one, get them, or two, please withdraw from the class immediately and find another mode in which to take it. So that is one way to be able to start to bridge that gap, because there is technology that can do that. It's just being able to get that in the hands of the students so that they can. I actually watched a video the other day where the group literally just went in and turned on the slide presentation. Oops, I'm kicking things. And down here, if I can click on this correctly, is where are these? Where are my drawing tools? PowerPoint commands?
You're on the side there.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
They've moved them on me because I'm on a Mac, so it's a little bit different. They're not coming out.
Go to the arrow on it.
It won't let me. Oh, there you go. Yes. So they literally just took the pen tool and drew out their piece that way. and recorded it through a video capture scenario so that the person then was able to illustrate exactly what it was they were supposed to be doing. Like, here's the nuclear cell and here's the things as they move. And they literally just used PowerPoint as their technology and used some free screen capture software and then created a little video of what it was that they drew and did. So there are some basics that really can be done. One of the things you have to consider when you do that, though, is you have to be able to master that technology first. And at that point, you want to be able to take a little video of what it is that you're expecting them to do and show them, literally, step by step. Okay, you are now going to do this. You're going to open up your PowerPoint. You're going to hit slideshow mode. You're going to grab the pen. You're going to draw like this. Please now demonstrate. That way they know exactly what it is you're expecting them to do. And if they have questions on how to use that technology, they can ask you. And you can go, I got it. And that's why you start out with something nice and simple that really fits what it is you're trying to do and incorporate that first. You can always build from that technology into more advanced technologies as you get more comfortable and as your students become more familiar with the types of classes that are available.
You could also, I believe, I'm not sure what the equivalent is in Mac or Linux, but you could just use Paint to draw, like if you're teaching a Krebs cycle or something like that. Just have them draw the circles out and then label them, and then save that as an image and then post it on campus.
There's actually an online app, I could send you a link to it later, where your students can actually draw whatever they like online. It's an online doodle app, and it will record every step of their drawing, and then they can just send or post a link, and somebody can click on it and watch them do that drawing. And it's got full paintbrush tools and everything, so they can sit there and be fancy or simple with it. And
We'll include that link on this PowerPoint so that you guys can have access to that.
Typically, it's a mixture of formalized symbols, the need for the drawing to be to scale.
A little more complicated.
Yes, that, again, if many of these tools simply aren't adequate to produce. You know, for example, that sketch there, maybe get a circle, what if we need an ellipse, what if we need a resistor symbol, if we need a capacitor symbol, we'd like to pull those in. And I'm not complaining here, but those are the kinds of challenges that are devastating if you really want to take material that has its own visual language.
Right. Very important. So yeah.
It's gotten a lot better though, man. So if you have the basic software tools that the students would be using normally, then the free screen capture tools have gotten so good that they can then not only draw it, but they can actually voice annotate how they came about and chose. You could actually explain their reasoning in an audio channel, and we really can then capture all that. So we're way ahead of where we were 5 years ago.
See, and then I can erase it. So,
Makes it look more real.
there you go. But then you wouldn't be able to read this. So you want them to, again, construct meaningful understandings, as he's saying, include the visuals that are important for them to actually get out of the material that they need. So, okay, so we had a faculty member who did move a science course online, and this was their thought on that process. So they had to think through the design of the course, which is what we're kind of talking about now. And this involved a long process with a technology assistant actually helping me with the formatting. So we do have individuals here who can help you sit down and look through some of these specific software and get a feel for what works and what doesn't work, and you can come meet with us and go through all of that. So that's exactly what they did. Except now. All right, well, I'm now done with that. What did I do? Oh, it's just froze, I think, because now my mouse is moving. Oh, well, it's all right. See, everyone has technical difficulties. What was that? It's just really, really slow. All right, so again, we just want to start with the basics. So you align learning activities and assessments. What do you have going on that's currently in your face-to-face, and how do we correlate those into the online? And again, it's a good chance to be able to start to review what it is you're already doing with your course and be able to make sure that those pieces actually still fit what it was, especially if it's something you've been teaching for a while. So, what do you currently use? Does anyone want to say something like an activity that you do in a face-to-face class that would be important to do online? Anybody? Someone over there had mentioned quizzes. So you want to be able to build a quiz. Well, they have some different software on hand. You can either build the quiz directly inside Canvas, and you can use Respondus also, so that you can use that as the software. And IMG is really good on both of those softwares, so you can sit down with them. They'll teach you all the ins and outs.
Do you know what Coursera uses? I'm taking one of their classes now, and as I watch the video, it like intersperses quizzes and tracking what I've done. Do you know, like, is it just Coursera software behind it, or is it something else?
Yeah, Joni, it's a proprietary technology.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not something. So
No, we
can
have to
you replicate it as soon as possible?
Well, that's actually more of like a Flash-based. So it takes some interactive type servers and those kind of things. We do have an instructional technologist who can help build some of those components as you work through them. His name would be Paul.
I can't promise that Coursera technology, but
No.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that, because that's really.
Interspersing the quizzes seems to help, because 1 hour-long lecture seems like the worst possible way to make an online course, right?
Thank you. That's exactly correct. You never want to put an entire hour online, simply because we as humans in general just default to about 7, at the most 10 minutes of time that we can really pay attention to that kind of material. So you want to really start to break down what that information is into 7 to 10 minute segments. And that's a good way to break that up. You can either fully do it, so it's just segmented videos, or you can intersperse some questionnaires so that they actually, okay, you've watched this. Yes, now here's your questions. Did you pay attention? Did you understand if you did pay attention? Or, okay, you got this one wrong. Now go back and rewatch that so that you get that topic all over again. So those are really good ways to be able to do that. Like I said, Flash is the old-fashioned software that does that. Flash is kind of going by the wayside, so we're looking into what the new ways are going to be so that we're up on the technology and keep moving ahead of it, hopefully. So what does transfer well? We talked about being able to put notes online. You can put those up. You have different kinds of formats. How many of you are familiar with PDFs? You view them, you watch them. You can certainly turn your Word documents into PDFs and upload those directly without going through a lot of work. It's a universal format. All of your students can read it, and it works really well with screen readers. So if someone's visually impaired, they'll actually be able to have the software be able to read that material for them. So those transfer really well. It's a nice, straightforward process, something you can do without a lot of extra work. And like I said, can you find new ways? Is there new technology to be able to draw that out? Is there the new Flash-styled interactive quizzing? So as I said, our team will be working on what some of those are so that we can hopefully stay on top of that. And if you know of any, if there's any that you've ever used and you're really excited about them, be sure to share with us, because that's the way to let everybody know kind of what's out there.
Along those lines, I haven't used it, but I see this technology where they have somebody sketching at the same time, and they're playing the sketch at high speed, and they talk over that. Do we have any capability for that kind of technology, or what's behind that? Because it's incredibly effective to see this sketch going on at the same time they're talking behind it.
Oh, like a lecture doodle? sort of
Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
Bruce Curtin does that.
So he has some technology to do that?
Bruce Curtin. They're under the College of
Media
Business.
MPG, Media Production Group.
Media Production.
But I think that's just speeding it up. We can speed that up in Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, because you can capture.
So, I mean,
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Start with an
my
artist.
sketches don't look
No,
like
absolutely.
that.
Right, absolutely.
Right, I'm not sure we have an artist that we don't have an artist that can necessarily do that for you, but if it's something that you do, yeah, but there's certainly Capture Camtasia, there's some free ones, there's one called Screencast-O-Matic, there's different software that will capture whatever is on your screen, it'll capture everything, from hand movements to... No, it's okay.
What if we wanted something, not like a game, not like something really intense, but just kind of a flash-based game with maybe some questionnaires and things going on? Is there anyone here that, so you could just, okay.
Yes, set up time, meet with Paul. If everyone were to come in, his expertise would be spread a little thin, but we are here to assist you, and eventually if it means being able to teach you how to use the software so that you can go out and do it on your own as well, that's great. But he would gladly be able to sit down and build some of that out with you guys and get all of that incorporated into some online classes. So, and if you have ideas, we can research what softwares might be appropriate. And now, saying that, you do have to be willing to do a little bit of trial and error in what does work and what doesn't work. Whereas he tried, it didn't work so well, so he stepped back. In 15 years of helping faculty put online classes together, you really find that you can't give up when it doesn't work that one time. The key is to let your students know they're part of a program that's new. We're going to try out this wonderful new software. We want you guys to be a part of this process. Please let us know how it goes. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's great. Sadly, you have to figure out how to make that not reflect on their grades, but you know, that's your guys' deal. No. But yeah, because we get a lot of buy-in back from the students when you do that, saying, great, I'm on the cutting edge. I get to help figure some of this stuff out. And at the end, well, yeah, that didn't work, but you know, the next class something else might work. And so we have a lot of students that don't give you don't get that negative feedback that you otherwise get when they go, well, this failed miserably and it didn't work at all and I didn't learn anything. And well, they did, it was just frustrating. So you have to be willing to go through part of that process just a little bit. So yes, engage students. As you said, games, those kind of things, be able to be as interactive as you can. It's not about fun, but it's about getting them to really have to want to partake, get online, do some things. Because again, they're kind of, as they come up, they're kind of used to life being that way. Everything's in a handheld gadget. Everything's flying in front of them. So if we want to grab their attention and be able to engage them so that they're focused on that, there are pieces that can do that. So how do we engage them? Establish a class presence. Does anyone have any idea what that might mean? Class presence. What do you do now in a face-to-face class to establish your class presence?
Show up and stand in the front of the room.
Jump up and down, wave your arms. No. Yeah, so we want to establish a class presence. When you're online, that can be a little bit difficult because you're on the other end of a computer. So there are ways to do that. You can put up an About Me page that just tells a little bit, gives a picture of who you are, tells them a little bit, gives you a personal side. You know, some instructors do, this is my dog, and that's my, you know, person I love the most in life. It's just like a person. So, you know, you can do all these wonderful things. You can do links to information that you really enjoy, so they know that you have another life besides. Right, it makes you human. It makes them realize that, you know, you aren't just there just to go, grade, grade, grade. You know, you're busy too. You have things going on, and you're not just sitting on the other end of that computer just waiting for that assignment, and oh, you're late. So it just makes it so, oh, you know, just if you had personality talking in class, you still have that personality, and they can relate to you. And there are ways to establish a class presence, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So introduce yourself the first day. Send out an email. Say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm Nels Madsen, and I love this course. This is my favorite topic to teach, and I'm so glad you guys are part of this class. You know, throw in some enthusiasm, and then maintain that communication. If it's a discussion board, make sure you pop in, give in some information. I love that you went this way with this topic, but did you think about this? And just really make sure that you're in there and that they know that you are the instructor and that you're paying attention and that they're not just on the other end of that computer. So have students introduce themselves. You have to be a little careful when you do this. They can have an introduction page on a discussion board. There are faculty in the past who have said you have to post a picture. But you can't require them to do that. There are some issues. Some don't like to have pictures taken. Some have security reasons they can't have pictures taken. So that gets to be a little sticky situation. Most of them will say, okay, put up a picture of your favorite flower if you absolutely don't want to, you know, so you at least get some personality in there. But introduce themselves. Why are you taking the course? What are you hoping to get out of the course? You know, what is your experience with this topic in the past? And just let them talk back and forth a little bit, because then they start to build those relationships that they might get sitting right next to a person that they're now on the other end of a computer. So yes, and then that's for the get to know your students and respond to their requests. So if they send you an email and it takes you 5 days to get back to them, they're going to go, that faculty member didn't respond to me at all. So you set up a guideline right at the beginning of the course. I will respond to all emails within 24 to 48 hours. If it's on the weekends, expect it by, Friday at 9, and again, not till Monday at 8, or however you want to set those up. But let them know. Once you set those guidelines, they're going to go, oh, well, I'm not going to hear from them. It's okay. Because, if it doesn't show up in 5 minutes, they didn't get back to me. Everybody respond within 5 minutes. Because they can text in their pockets and get responses, so. And again, participate in class activities. So if it's a discussion board, post. If it's some kind of quiz that they've taken, give them feedback on it. Just make sure that they know that you're there. Okay. So what does this do? This develops that learning community. They start to feel that they're part of a group, and they're more likely to interact with each other and with you and really feel like they're part of a team, especially if it's part of, a major where they're going to be with these groups more and more and more and more. Then they start to be able to maintain.
Do you know of any classes that are using like that Skype community where people can work on their laptop, turn on their camera, and actually have a discussion? I can't think of the name of the technology, but there's a lot of workshops and stuff that are being delivered that way.
There's several different actual technologies. There's Adobe Connect, there's Illuminate, there's Skype, there's Illuminate is one I actually.
Scopia is using Adobe Connect. That way.
Is anybody on campus using that yet?
Scopia is used by Ag extensively. So they're really good with that. There is Inside Canvas. There's also a web conferencing group, and I heard it has some issues, but it's getting.
It's only compatible with Firefox, I think. And then it's still kind of
iffy.
But I'm trying to use it for my office hours, and none of my students have ever bothered to sign on.
And you'll probably find that often to be the case. But at least you're offering it. A lot of times what happens to be a different use of office hours, of course you have to put them on, so you have to be there, but some of them will do frequently asked questions in a discussion board, and then you can post what those are and your answers. Another one is to give students an area where they can discuss problems back and forth, especially with a group of 200. Sometimes you'll find if you give them an area to be able to discuss topics of concern, they'll actually answer each other's questions. The key, of course, is to kind of try to monitor it a little bit so that they're not giving complete misinformation, but you let them know it's their job at that point. You have the means to now communicate back and forth on these topics. It's your job to make sure the information you got from that student is correct. Check, back it up.
What's the trick to setting it up so that students respond, so students post things, and that they respond to each other instead of just being on an email?
It's a discussion board. It's built inside Canvas.
Yeah, but people won't post, or they'll post it and everyone just kind of ignores it until they start with one to watch and responds to it. I mean, how do you make them feel comfortable responding to strangers, basically, apart from their pictures?
Well, first off, you have to make it worth something. You have to make it points.
If you just say, like, you must post, then you get really dumb posts, right?
Right, you do. And you have to say you must post.
You made me do it.
And and you have to spell that out. You have to say, and your post must be substantial. Yes, no does not qualify. I have.
Points if it responds to someone else's comment.
Yes, actually, some actually require that as part of the points. They will say you only get full points if you respond. If you post once, and that's your initial post, your first thought on this topic. Now, you do that by Tuesday. By Saturday, I expect you to post average. Most classes require at least twice. Some require 3. And it depends on the level, undergraduate versus graduate. So you're now required to respond 2 more times by Saturday. And at that point, if they don't respond, and again, you have to qualify that. You say a substantial response, furthering the topic, addressing thoughts. And like I said, I have had professors in the past that will actually say how many words. To me, that's tedious. I don't want someone saying, you have to put 300 words. I don't want to go through and count. They responded with 300 and, oh, okay, got it. Well, there was 325, but that's close enough. You know,
Yeah, I attended one class where the professor required that he post one time and respond to another posting at least once. But the respondent will get to the highest number of hits on it will get a prize, kind of Auburn flag.
nice.
Does Canvas track those number of
Yes,
for you?
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I can't stand the tedium of.
Right, no, you wouldn't need to go through that. And actually, the course management systems will also track what students opened. So you can see if they actually went through and read other posts. Well, whether they opened them. If they read them during while they're open or not.
So if you have 200 students have all these posts and stuff, it can keep up with that, with the number of points that they're getting?
Yes. Again, if you have that many students, you'd want to break it down into groups so it's manageable. The software itself can handle the capacity of that. It's whether you want to sit and how much you want to monitor. At that point, I would keep discussions simple, and I would keep them in small groups so that you're able to manage that content, because it can multiply very quickly. The other thing is most professors get into a habit of scanning. You know, there's, okay, here's the main keywords. They've at least addressed these issues. I can now say, yeah, they've got this, and they at least took the time.
Good, actually.
Yeah.
To keep track of people's, how many times.
Yeah. So.
That really does get at a bigger question. At some point, you need software tools that will do these kinds of evaluations for you, that you can program in some sense so they can recognize important.
Well, Canvas will do statistics for that of the what the students are, but you.
I mean, actually evaluate whether
You
the
want
comments.
you want semantic analysis of the text?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, when people are have their word scan, you make sure that they're pulling the right words.
Right.
Do you have
Most.
any tools like that available to us?
We don't, basically because most faculty are really still want ownership at this point to be able to go in and have control over what they're reading and being able to break that down.
I mean, yes, there are tools out there. Those tools are not integrated and easy to access learning management systems. So I mean, there's special purpose, very nice projects out there where in various subject areas people have done this and have built these tools. But integrating them into the learning management system, that's true. So they're easily accessible. But I think we're getting there.
Yeah. But yeah, some of the faculty sphere, when those are in place, then what is the need for the faculty? So it's a double-edged sword.
He's a dean,
so he's good. So. So yes, you know, double-edged, but yes, helpful. Again, if you have 200 students, there's no real easy way to get through all of that unless you have some.
Do we have an optical scanner, like for papers, for reading papers through and knowing if they had hit the number of words that you wanted or keywords?
IMG might have that kind of materials. You could certainly. Otherwise, if they're, you wouldn't want to copy and paste. That would be ugly. But there's some. Probably speak with them too, and we can take a look at what some of those options are. But yeah, and again, once you get used to doing that with them, most people get fairly familiar with exactly what it is that they're looking for, and knowing whether somebody made appropriate responses or not, or whether they're substantial enough to have pushed that discussion forward. You know, there's some topics that you just can't. What they've said is what is, and that's about it. And again, that depends on the levels. If it's a freshman class, it's going to be a pretty contained thought process probably at that point. But it's growing with them. As we're on the new edge here for online, it'll also be part of that process as students become more familiar with actually doing online classes as well. So, like I said, provide opportunities for debates, discussion, and even journal entries for how the class is going that they can just send directly to you that says, you know, I'm getting this, I'm having trouble with this, those kind of things. So, and encourage positive expressions of diverse perspectives. The key is to facilitate that and to appreciate that, and then also there is opportunities at that point for somebody to be rogue and be negative. You have to say any disagreements have to be constructive, and there are guidelines in which I will require you to adhere to. And if there's noticed anything that's outside those guidelines, you can immediately be removed from the class or whatever kind of things that you want to put in place, or your F for the grade, or whatever stipulations you work out with your deans and department heads, because you can run into that. You can run into people who stalk other people in the classes, or if it attack someone's personality instead of their thoughts. So you just have to be able, again, to monitor and to stay on top of that. It does not happen very often, thankfully, but you put up some netiquette guidelines, and we'll get into that in a second. So how do we reach them? Again, the nice thing about online learning, and I'm sorry, this is kind of I tried to make the least large. The rest of it you can read when this is online, and you probably are familiar with this enough that it's not a big deal. But online can reach everybody who learns in multiple ways, because you're addressing so many different things that can be done. It's not just me standing here talking. It's something they can read. It might be a video they can watch. So you're able to start to address all these different types of learners, which is a really nice benefit to being able to teach online. Okay, so actually implementing. How do you reach them? What do we do to be able to start this? The key is what technologies you want to incorporate. Of course, first one here is Canvas, and that's the course management system that we have in place. IMG is the first point of contact for that, so they can train you how to use it. And if there's pieces that you're interested in being able to utilize inside Canvas, if you want to come sit down and talk with me, and we can talk about, okay, I do this in my face-to-face class, how does this correlate into an online class? We can go through, talk about which pieces are important, and then you can learn those specific pieces as well. So there's different technology that you can utilize, like I said, Canvas being the first one. There's other technologies, and we're going to cover those in just a minute. So how do you get student buy-in? Does anyone have any ideas why you might get them to want to be a part of this? Anyone?
Talk about the flexibility of an online course, so they don't have to meet at a certain time.
Key.
Yeah.
That's very key. And that's one of the sometimes misconceptions about online learning is, well, I'm still going to have them meet face-to-face once. Well, the goal really of online learning is to be fully online, so they can learn from anywhere at any point. So if you have students that, again, that are having difficulty getting into a particular class and you have a long waiting list, that might be a course in which that area that you might be able to start to implement an online course for that. So if you're the dean or if it's your course, you can move that forward a little bit.
I was just going to say,
No.
if you get a student to buy in, too, you have to also, a lot of students want efficient learning. They don't want to just sit. They want to get in and get out.
Yes.
That's what they need.
Yes.
So that would be another way.
Very good. Yes, and it really ties into that because they're picking that pieces that they need to do.
To manage their own time.
Yep, and they do it when they need to. So.
No parking pass required.
No parking pass required. It would, and no long hour trip on Tiger Transit to get there. So what makes it successful? I can't even talk, but that's right. Any ideas on the stuff that we talked about?
Reality check, though. People think flexible means, that they don't have to have the time management skills. Right? It's really difficult. Some of these online courses are really difficult to self-manage. So you can kind of tell them that up front that it's harder than just showing up for class at a set time, and I determine how we spend our time. That's easy.
Right, and that's a good point. It's not a correspondence class, it's an online class, meaning we still have due dates, we still have assignments that have to be done within a certain amount of time. A paper still has to be turned in, discussions are still within a week, those kind of things. So definitely letting them know that up front.
I should say, and if it's a topic that's somewhat difficult for the student, the fact that it's online, they can go back and revisit it, which is another way to get by.
Exactly.
If they've had a difficult time with that class, this way they can,
Yes.
revisit it several times to make sure they have the concept.
Exactly, they're not walking out of class going, whoa, that didn't make any sense to me and I don't know who to ask.
Right.
So go beyond entertaining them. We talked about videos a little bit, and those are great, but that's not the end-all be-all, of course, of what that is. So we want to make sure that if you're using a technology, you're using it for a reason. There's really something that you're going to get and your students are going to get out of that. So, which technology? There's a lot of options out there. How do you know? So first off, what you want to do is I want to get an idea of how many of the technology applications actually apply. Because as we said, for everything that you want to do, there's at least probably a minimum of 3. And so we can look at costs, we can look at time, we can look at learning curve and what it takes to be able to utilize that software. And so that's something where if you want to come and sit down and meet with us, that's usually a good place to start with that. And then we look at those, which technology are actually fitting your goal. It's best to look at what you're trying to achieve, what the assignment is, what it is you want them to get. So you don't actually even have to start with looking at the technology. We can match that technology that we are familiar with. So if he's got this writing one, we say, oh, well, you're trying to do this. Here is a technology that fits that. So, and which one, again, makes most sense to you? Which one can you learn so that when your students have questions, you can answer them and help them out. So that's key. And how much time do you have to devote? Again, we talked about kind of making this very similar to the first time teaching, building that curriculum. It's kind of time intensive up front. It's very much the same process. And again, once you get in, you build it, you work through those kinks, the subsequent years gets easier. You build on that, you find out which pieces worked, which ones didn't work, and then that time frame comes down quite a bit. So like I said, we'll talk about some of the options. Now, there's social media, and Twitter is one of the things. There are some classrooms out there that are making people sign on for Twitter and do those kind of things. There's Facebook. Controversial, but there are Facebook groups which you can build. So if you have a club that pertains to your particular major, there are things that you can start to build those communities. So you can do a page or a group or something that you're not seeing what's on their Facebook page. File sharing, what do you use to do that? You can use Dropbox, you can use Google Docs. There's all these, again, different technologies. What is it you want your students to be able to do? If they're signing in an assignment, there's a certain amount of space inside Canvas in which you are allowed for a file size. The reason I mentioned Dropbox is because it allows for a larger file size than any other software that is available. We talked about video tutorials. There's several different ones. There's Camtasia. There's an option for VoiceThread, which is one. So if you want to look into these up online afterwards, that's great. Audio explanations. It doesn't have to be a video. It can be your voice. It can just be an MP3, which is completely mobile and goes onto any phone, iPod, whatever it is, and they get your voice. They hear it, so it's not necessarily going to be miscommunication as easily once you have verbal, especially if you're doing terminologies or those kind of things. And again, mobile learning. There's some things for ebooks that people can start getting into if they really want to dive into the deep end of the pool. Down here, hidden, there's things, Second Life, we mentioned some web conferencing. Ning is a social group in which you can do. There's surveys that you can do for your students, all different kinds of technology options. So, take the fear out of using the technology. Again, let them know, we're trying this out, we're hoping you'll let us know how this works. And one of the other keys to doing that is don't talk the tech language, because they're gonna go, huh? So, layman's terms, spell it out. This is what the technology does. This is how you implement it. Here's a step-by-step explanation of it. And then they're going to go, great, that makes sense. Again, step-by-step tutorials. So, experience. This one was a good one. I thought that I could easily move the course by simply moving my notes online. Seems reasonable. But I realized that there's a hidden wealth of information verbally conveyed. And if I convey the essential concepts and connections in the online course, then the students would experience success. Again, you can do MP3s. You can make sure that the things that you would have said that you don't realize that you say are actually written down in notes format for them. Some very important things there. So things to consider. Student accessibility. Those are universal design. Again, visually impaired, hearing impaired. You want to make sure you start to address some of that. What technologies do they have? Do they have a laptop in which they can make notations? Those kind of things. Technical issues. What happens when they suddenly say, my computer crashed, I was in the middle of a quiz? Those happen all the time. You have to be ready to take on those issues with them. Or I can't watch the video, it's not loading correctly. All things you have to be prepared to deal with. Again, that level of interaction, 200 students, what kind of level of interaction can you get? And then big one is when you start to move stuff online is pay attention to copyright. You have to ask for copyright permission. You have to, maintain all those kind of things. And you can work with people in the library in those kind of areas to make sure that that's all. And then your anticipated learning outcome. What is it you're really expecting them to get out of this online class? Okay, we're going to kind of run short on time. So what can you incorporate? You can incorporate links to other online resources, anything that's out there. That's not a copyright issue. You can do that. You have the means to be able to incorporate those into your course. So if there's really viable information somewhere else other than your own, feel free. Link to it. Use it. Bookstore and Amazon, they're all online options. The library has online options. Make sure your students are familiar with those. And then again, those online links for materials. And then university-specific resources. The handbook is online. All those things that they would need to know are out there. And I can help you get a lot of those links. And if you think of any others, feel free to let us know that there's other areas of concerns. And what are the benefits? Okay, so what are the benefits? Anyone?
I'm looking to use Canvas in this format mainly for the tedium of not having to read all of that paper and to have online quizzes and not have to score them and all of that.
Perfect. Especially that online quizzing, grading. It'll automatically grade, drop it in the grade book. It's done. It's incorporated. And you can do them timed so that you're keeping those so that they're viable yet. They're not just they can get all the answers. The other thing to think about is what means are they getting, what do they need to learn otherwise to get those. If they're utilizing some really good research skills to find an answer, good for them. But, and again, we mentioned addressed ADA. That's a really good start for that. You don't have to go back and reinvent that wheel. If you have a student that comes in that needs that, it's already done up front. So, and again, it gives you a chance to review and update material for your courses if you've been teaching them for a while. It really gives you that chance to revisit all of that. And it makes learning mobile so that you do have people who have to be stuck somewhere like Japan because they're over there for an internship. They can still take your course and be able to get through that process. Exactly. You can go down to the beach for a weekend and still be teaching your class. Highly recommend it. So in designing this online course, I've actually gained ideas to improve my classroom course. So it goes both ways. You get benefits. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. This is an example that we'll play of this guy. That's really exciting. Okay, so the self-assessment part of that is what do you do when you start building this? I do have some handouts here for Quality Matters. That's a standard across the board United States way to be able to look at what pieces you need to incorporate. There are universities that utilize this as a means to ensure that all the courses that go online fit all these criteria. And there's a Purdue assessment one that we have that's, if anybody wants copies, I can make copies of that one as well. You can also have a colleague review once your course is built. Have them go through, take a look. Are there pieces I'm missing, pieces I'm not? And again, ask your students how it's going. We do have, you can post the discussion area, ask them for feedback. We have designed in the distance learning area a pre and post survey for your students so that they can utilize, you can put that online, they can answer that. And then the Big EO has a mid-semester online survey that you could also incorporate if you wanted to. So you can do all of that. And then you want to track where your problems come up so you can address those. And you want to make notes of where your successes are so you continue to move forward with those. Are we on time? What do we got for time?
We're good. So time for questions. You want to hand out the quality matters?
Yes. There we go. See? So the key to the Quality Matters rubric is, let's see, pass those around. There's going to be notes for points down the side. They're 3, 3, 1, 1, 1. If you were to actually have a university that utilized this as their criteria for making sure your course is okay, you have to meet all of the 3s. So those are the goals to aim for to have a really high quality online course. The rest of them are points that you just have to, what they do is they have a total of 72 points. So as you go through, that's just something to aim for, but it really gives you some pieces in which you know are important. So as you start to build your course, or if you already have a course that's built, you can kind of just review and look through this as a checklist to just kind of help you out.
Let me just say a couple of things there. One is that we have a green evaluation sheet for today's seminar. As we start to give out, please do give us some feedback. Feedback's always useful for self-improvement. And then part of my role now as kind of the director of the Distance Learning Office is that I sit on UCC, University Curriculum Committee, and the Graduate Curriculum Committee committees. Auburn does not use a formal kind of methodology such as the Quality Management rubric to approve any new courses that come along. And that includes distance learning courses. So distance learning courses at Auburn are treated exactly the same way any kind of new course that you might propose. But when it's coming through those committees, basically over the last year, I have now been involved in an active way in that course approval link. So after it's gone through your college curriculum committee and it goes to academic affairs, I'm working with academic affairs with the provost's office to basically look over, consult with the faculty member if there's some issues in terms of what we can tell from the forms that you filled out and the sample syllabus that you provided. But there are lots of institutions that actually use a formal process like this, work on it informally, using some of these design criteria in terms of looking at people's courses. Now, clearly, if it's a new course being added to an existing program, like the certain program where it's well established, the modality is established, then it's not much of an issue. But when a new biology course, but a new chemistry course were to come along, right? Chemistry is nothing online. So a new chemistry course comes along, that's going to be looked at. Like I'm a physicist by training. I've been doing online stuff with teaching physics for a long time, so I can talk to the chemists and figure out some good ways to do that. So we are here as a resource. We're here as a technical resource, as a design resource, and as well as an administrative resource. Because I know in the past, distance learning courses have not gotten as fully developed as they could because of various levels of miscommunication, whatnot. So we're here to help at every different level.
So, were there any questions?
So one of the things that I do in class is the every professor reads the class when they present new material and sort of gets a feel for, do I need to say that one more time a slightly different way? Is there a way of drawing this out to get them there? You don't get that feedback in this online course because it's not what they ask you, it's not what they say, it's the way they look at you, it's the way you...
The deer in the headlights?
Yeah, exactly, and you can't get that this way, and I don't believe they're in the discussion boards or any of that, they're going to give you that kind of feedback. And I don't know how you, I don't think you get it like that, that you get in a real classroom by being able to read the audience. How you do that.
It's a true concern, but you would be surprised at how much they are less afraid to speak up in an online version of that course. You don't get that, you have to read them in that face-to-face because a lot of them are scared to speak up. And they don't want to be, I don't know. But in an online, a lot of times they're not afraid to be really straightforward and ask you the questions of things that I don't understand.
But I can get it's the immediate feedback that I get, so I can modify the lecture right then, right there. I don't wait for a question that shows up 2 days later or shows up later. I can make the adjustment while I'm in the lecture. And that's the delay piece. And now 2 days later, I'm going back to fix something that I didn't know they didn't understand at the time. And it's that feedback I think I miss out of this, and I don't really know how to compensate for that.
Well, there's not a really good way. Most of the time, what you want to do is you'll look at what is the most difficult concepts over the years. What are the ones that students struggle with tend to struggle with. And those are the ones you just automatically maybe give extra information for, saying if you are struggling with this term or idea, theory, concept, here's some extra information that I would normally give to students on this. And then the students who are struggling with that already have the means to get that material right away. They don't have to wait to email you, those kind of things. That's one way to start to address it. And then those pieces are there. The other thing is you can, that's where the office hours, the live web, okay, you've watched this, I am now here right now, I'm online, I'm in a video session. You can see that student and you can still get a feel for that.
Yeah, and it works with the one, but I'm looking for the class as a whole that's, I've lost 20% or 30% of the class or 40% of the class.
The student has the advantage of they can rewind.
They can
can't
rewind,
in
they
class.
can rewind, but I can't rephrase.
You can't rewind.
I can't rewind and rephrase or take a different approach to try to get the concept across.
Right. Sometimes, you're right, you do. And maybe one of the ways to do that is to look at how you would typically rephrase that for them and automatically include it. Be like, I could say it this way, and I can say it this way, and I can say it this way. And if you have trouble with all three of these, then email me.
I would develop some kind of video that split, and they could kind of decide. Like something really important. Yeah, exactly. Choose your own adventure lecture, and at some point, or maybe they fail the quiz question and they get a different video, and then you would have to already anticipate it, but you could only provide that third way of explaining it.
So typically, these kind of courses are taught in your office, sitting at your computer, not in some lab or something?
Yeah, your office, your computer, your laptop at home.
Well, I mean, in terms of, I think, the production, if you're going to actually create videos of your lectures, if that's what you'd like to do, then there's different production levels you can choose.
Right.
If you want to hire the Bruce Curtin, the multimedia production group, right, the people who do for the big screen TV up at the stadium, they're available. They'll charge you like $2,000 an hour, but they'll make you look like a Hollywood star. But it is available, right? That's what they do with the executive MBA people, right? So we actually have people doing that. Or if you want some intermediate level, we have a $2,000 camcorder, and we can make you look pretty good.
Or you can just
Or
take
you can host the
PowerPoint slides
webcam.
and do a voiceover.
Right, record your voice over that.
You can just do voiceover and PowerPoint slides. And just do it.
You can do any level, whatever you're comfortable, whatever your means are.
Typically synchronous or asynchronous?
Asynchronous, that's the goal, is to make it as flexible for your students as possible. Like I said, you don't want it to be correspondence. You still have specific due dates, you still have specific times to do discussions, you're still expecting them to keep up the same pace that you would in a face-to-face, but they have, say, a 24-hour window in which to post a, certain thing, or, they have a week to get that assignment in. Because you can have, eventually, you can have students from all over. I'm in a grad class, I'm here, part of my grad class is in Iowa, I'm taking the class from South Dakota State, and there's another student that's in Japan. So, the goal is to be able to make learning mobile.
But it is true that there are courses and programs currently at Auburn, in the College of Ed, I know, where it is only synchronous. Right? It is, yeah.
Yes.
So,
And
but there's all different modalities. The graduate level is definitely about what makes your program work for your particular clientele.
yeah. And letting students know up front, because the general public, when they think they're signing up for an online course, think that it is asynchronous, and there will not be. So you have to really make sure that the students know what it is they're signing up for in advance. Typically, the ideal scenario for wording that would be a hybrid course, which is some online, some face-to-face, so that they know there is a place and time they have to be. That would really be the ideal goal of how to word that. I think the university will move.
I have two questions. One, how does the university protect faculty members' proprietary information? I mean, are there...
It's inside Canvas.
Okay.
Lockdown,
Okay.
password protected.
So it can't be copied and pasted elsewhere?
If they go through...
Browser, right? So once it's in a browser, they deliver it to students, it's no more secure, but it's like any other courses you teach. Somebody could be secretly recording your class, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that that same level?
You own,
that
you and the
your
university.
registered students are in your class, and you own your material.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second question I ask is, who actually hosts this and manages making the class accessible? You just post it to Canvas and...
Yes, it's your class.
Okay.
You run it, you manage it. We can assist you in ideas. IMG can assist you in learning how to do it, but you own it. You own the process, you own the time.
It would be in your department and our students.
So yeah, so there's, if you have a GTA that you want to assign to help you maintain it, that's great. That's your...
The opposite of accessibility too will help, like if you have a student that needs.
Yeah, let me address one other thing.
Yeah.
Like for visual impairment or whatever, they'll help.
So I think when we're reading the index cards, one of the things that came up was exams. And people often bring up exams as a concern. And so I just wanted to mention that if you do require exams that are proctored, and we're talking about undergraduates here, we start with the undergraduate issue. Most Auburn students who take online courses that are undergrads are physically around here somewhere. Like they're actually physically in town. We have essentially no distant undergraduate online students. One of the things we offer, one of the services through our offices is proctored testing, secure proctored testing. So we have testing rooms where there's a lockdown browser. You set up your exam inside Canvas, it's an online class, and then we have cameras and whatnot, and people will take away their cell phones and basically sign it on for a time clock. So that is something we definitely support. And there's a whole network. If you have students who are physically distant, there's a network of collegiate testing centers all around the country. And so we can also help you. If you have a student, let's say in Iowa, 19 students here and 1 student in Iowa, we can help put that student in touch with an appropriate testing center close to where they live. They could drive to take the proper exam. So if you want to do that, that's something that definitely we can help you.
Yes, and
That's a big concern.
if proctoring is something that you've done. Otherwise, you can do fully online. You can use Respondus lockdown browser, which locks the computer down to just that quiz or test. You can also do timings. You can actually release certain questions for a certain amount of times so that students only have so much time to answer those questions, which eliminates usually a lot of ability to be able to look things up on a phone. Oh, I don't have enough time. So that's some of the things. And then looking at, wording of questions, viability, those kind of things.
Yeah, I guess with chemistry, part of our thing is making sure that they do their work and like showing their process, because I try to give, partial credit if they get the idea right, but their numbers are wrong, they still get points for understanding that concept. And if you're online and you're just selecting, if you have a long essay, you can write an essay on a computer, but then it's hard, like they were saying with physics, it's hard to get your symbols easily put into some kind of thing. And you could almost make it be a multiple choice question, but then that's a
right or wrong, and that's...
So one thing that we've actually done for NELS in the past is he allows scratch paper. I proctored exam actually done here. Students have actually turned in, and we've actually turned the scratch paper in. Yeah, it was physically here, so we just
But certainly.
over. So each student had their scratch paper, their work was shown as a separate artifact from the online test. So
That's a very good point.
yeah, these are, it is a new world, right? So as we're moving towards it, the main thing is that we're here to help, and I think we finally have the infrastructure in place to really help people, the whole way through. So, Chris,
I know we did a proctored exam for a pre-calculus course, and that was all math, all done by hand, and saved it as a PDF, like you mentioned before, and sent it back to the professor. Got an email about 10 minutes later. I got the exam. Thank you.
So they wrote it out, then they scanned it, and then just yeah.
Chris works in our proctored testing center.
I think that would be like the best.
It'll be
Yeah.
great for the stuff he was talking about it'll be great for him.
Definitely. Very good. Thank you, Chris, for that. All right. Wonderful. Thank you guys for all coming.
There's still cookies and stuff in the junk. By the way,
The video. Yes. Sorry. I was going to show you the video.
We
Yes.
have recorded this all in Panopta, so we'll actually make the recording of the whole thing available.
Is that going to
That's
come?
why it's so slow to transition.
Greetings, I'm John Boyer, a humble college professor that has spent over a decade educating the masses in my classes about international affairs and current events, because I am absolutely passionate about getting this generation of American students thinking globally and fully engaged in the wider world. In pursuit of this educational quest, I experiment with all manner of media to produce podcasts and web pages and streaming video, but I am mostly infamous for creating a comic book alter ego. a stylish, super sexy pseudo-spy named the Plaid Avenger. He is a mild-mannered college professor by day, and investigator of international intrigue by night. Now, this character serves as the host/storyteller of our narrative-driven textbooks and educational graphic novels, in which our fictional friend is placed into the factual world to entertain while educating readers about crucial geopolitical issues of our times. We've already sent the Avenger to the Arctic Sea and to Burma, and now it's time for a whole new adventure, and this time in a whole new interactive way. But of course, I don't do all this work myself. I've been extremely fortunate to be linked up with creative and passionate peeps that help make all these ideas into reality. In fact, I should introduce them now. Plaided Avengers, assemble!
Hi, I'm Klaus Schmidheiser, aka Plaid Klaus, artist of the Plaid Avenger.
I'm Kevin. I'm the web developer and the app developer.
Hi, I'm Katie, the fixer.
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm the Plaid comic book writer.
That's the team. Here's the mission: to create the 3rd edition of this comic, which will send the Plaid Avenger to Mexico to do battle with the nefarious drug cartels, and in the process teach about the backstory of this bloodbath that is currently being waged south of our border. But that's just the beginning. We also want to make this a totally interactive educational graphic novel app as well. So it will simultaneously be a standard print comic and a comic iPad app. But hang on, we're not talking about some simple scanned-in art into a PDF format. No. This app is going to be a truly interactive beast that will contain pop-up maps of story locations, embedded video lecture clips from the Plaid Avenger himself on key themes and concepts, and even have hidden Easter eggs of video info on culturally topical tidbits like tequila or narco ballads. We really want to push the envelope of what the future of graphic novels can be, especially ones that educate while they entertain. Help fulfill our dream of creating this evolutionary, revolutionary, and non-pollutionary interactive educational graphic novel app. We're asking for support from all you fellow teachers,
Media scholars,
High school students,
college professors,
App designers,
Tech enthusiasts,
educators,
comic book fans,
students,
app developers,
writers,
and all friends and fellow citizens of the one Plaid planet. Help us create this new age comic app, an educational comic of the people, funded by the people, for the people, to help educate all the peoples.